Hello, hello, and welcome back to Gaming Podcast Live. I'm your host, Miabyte, on the special DigiPride edition of the show as we dive into all manner of the most curiously captivating queer conversations on the web. I said it first time that time, because usually that's quite the tongue twister. I can't believe I actually said it that time without messing up. There we go. That's a first for the show. Right. Today, we're continuing our series of roundtable specials and are joined by 4 super special guests. Now, please welcome a huge gaming welcome to DrGRZLY, Mxiety, Whinnaay, and Rosie from Safe in Our World. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
How are you all doing today? Having a good day so far? A good Sunday? I know it's very early for some of y'all in the US right now, and Canada, of course.
Very good. Lots of laundry. Very productive.
Better with you all here.
Heck yeah.
Wonderful.
That's what we love to hear.
Kidding.
I honestly, I'm so glad to be joined by such wonderful and wholesome individuals such as yourselves this very fine day. And yeah, we're gonna get into some wonderful conversation here. We're gonna talk about mental health and video games and just have a good old time, I think. And thank you so much everybody here for taking the time to chat. It really means a lot to us here at the at Gaming Magazine. So yeah, of course. Before we get started, let's get to know each of you a little bit better. So what I would like you to do is we'll go down the line, starting with Grzly here. You can introduce yourselves and tell us about you and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you for that introduction. My name is Grzly. I'm a queer variety streamer here on Twitch. Professionally, I work as a psychologist, a practicing licensed psychologist, and I've worked in a variety of clinical settings. Currently, I work with military veterans around like PTSD and other forms of trauma. But yeah, that's just kind of me in a nutshell.
Heck yeah. And of course, we have Win.
Hi, everyone. My name is Whinnaay or Whinnaay. People also know me as Win. I'm a gaming streamer and content creator, primarily active on Twitch. I stream a lot of Genshin Impact, but I really enjoy basically any game that allows me to be social. I really use gaming as a social tool. And since I started streaming a few years ago, it's been a wonderful... Yeah, it's hit my sweet spot of gaming with people, both things that I really, really love and enjoy. So,
Heck yeah. And of course, we have the wonderful Mxiety. How are you today? And tell everybody about yourself.
So yeah, Mxiety, you can call me M. I am a mental health and variety talk show host. Right now, we're doing a lot of Disney Dreamlight Valley because it is, I think, the only thing keeping me more or less emotionally chill. But otherwise, we talk about just all the stuff. And the idea is that if you come into the stream, whether you're feeling great, you're feeling not so awesome, you're doing your best, you didn't do your best today, but you're trying to do your best tomorrow. The goal is for you to be in a warm and welcoming space. And hopefully that will make you want to be warm and welcoming out to the rest of the world. So that's our goal. That's what we do. And I'm super, super stoked to be here. I adore all these. I'm so excited to meet Whinnaay, but all of these other humans on the stream. I'm so excited to hang out with you all again.
Oh my God, that's too wholesome. We're getting too wholesome now. No tears.
Are we talking about poop or like I can fix that? Oh.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll leave that for after the main discussion. We'll see what happens. It might come up. Who knows? And of course, last but not least, we have the wonderful Rosie from Safe in Our World.
Hi. Yes. Hi. So I'm Rosie. I am representing Safe in Our World today, which is a mental health charity focused specifically on the games industry and essentially trying to destigmatize the conversation in general about mental health and using games as a vehicle to do so, because it is the most fun way to be able to talk about mental health, in my opinion, and being able to draw like a really cool hobby with something that I'm passionate about as well is just so good for me. So yeah, that's me, I guess.
Absolutely amazing. And we all know that obviously Safe in Our World, you all do an amazing job out there. in general. So we're gonna get to the juicy conversation in just a moment. But before we get started on that, let us say a big old thank you to our DigiPride partners today. I just need to tell you that DigiPride is presented by Healthy Sexual, Wizards of the Coast, and Xbox, as well as being sponsored by Devolver Digital and Marvelous. So big thank you to them. Let's take a quick look at how you can keep yourself healthy in all situations with the following video from our DigiPride partner, Healthy Sexual.
Honestly, no one wants to think about HIV, but there are things that everyone can do to help prevent it. It starts with getting tested regularly. If you're HIV negative, you and your healthcare provider can decide if PrEP may be right for you. PrEP means routinely taking prescription medicine before you're exposed to HIV to help reduce your chances of getting it. And it can be 99% effective when taken as prescribed.
Talk to a healthcare provider about all your HIV prevention options. Our health is worth protecting.
Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. So, as this is a special roundtable podcast, we're going to be dedicating all of our time today, as per usual, to our big question. But again, before that, I do have to state that even though we do have a mixture of mental health professionals and non-mental health professionals here on today's podcast, none of what we say in this episode should be considered as a substitute for proper mental health advice or treatment. So do be aware of that. But without further ado, today we're asking, can video games help with our mental health? Now, I really do think the answer is pretty clear on this one, but I'm not the expert. So I'm going to let you all dive in general. And do you feel that video games can be a positive for your mental health?
Yes. End podcast.
End podcast. Okay, we're done here. Okay, thanks. Thank you all for watching this episode. It's been absolutely amazing. Outro play. No, I'm kidding. I was figuring I was gonna press the outro button then, but I don't know if it was gonna play in the exact all the way. So I was like, maybe best not to do that.
Yeah,
but
best not commit to the bit this time.
All right, let's split this down then. Let's break this down a little bit more then. What games do you personally think of as being good for your mental health? Like what do you recommend to people? What do you use? This is like an open question.
Well, sorry, I'm not clearing my throat to be like, everybody stop talking. I'm clearing my throat because I was sick. I swear.
That's okay.
Can I go first, Bia? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So we could talk about, games that literally we have research that proves that they improve our mental health. For example, there is research linking the fact that Tetris can prevent people from having PTSD. If I know there's like a special formula, you have to play it a certain amount of time after the trauma for a certain amount of time, and then they've been able to prove that can reduce your chances for having PTSD later. So there's that. There's literally a game that was approved by the FDA to help people with ADHD improve their attention span. I think that's exactly, it's for children. I think that's like exactly the one thing that they were able to prove that it could do, and it is approved for. So like research speaking, yes, we have proof that games can do that. Personally speaking, heck yes, there's definitely proof that they could do that. Can they also make parts of our mental health a little bit harder to deal with? Totally. But I think it really depends on having an honest conversation with yourself and saying, is this helping me? Am I using this along with other tools and having a fun time playing this game and it's not interfering with the rest of my life? Yes. Heck yes. Yes. I'm talking about Disney Dream. Like literally, I started this whole conversation by saying Disney Dreamlight Valley is the only thing that's keeping me emotionally stable right now. And that is absolutely an exaggeration. However, it is one of those things that I will just like pop into any game like that, right? There's a reason that like the whole world was taken over by Animal Crossing in 2020. Games that don't require a high skill set, but are more about, repetitive actions and feeling reaffirmed and like what you're doing is the right thing that you're supposed to be doing. We don't get that guarantee in life with a lot of things. I'd argue with most things. So to know that like in game, I can go up to this bench with, 3 pieces of something, which doesn't even make sense. Like I could put these 3 things together, but it will make a chair in this game, and that's awesome. Because in real life, I might not like have access to a chair right now to be able to
Yeah.
buy the chair I need, but I can make one in this game, and that's all that matters.
I can totally see what you're saying there with during the pandemic, like how much loss of control people must have been feeling throughout that entire experience, to know that there's that one place that you can just like dive in and you know exactly what's going to happen and how you're going to do things. And yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. How about anybody else? Is there any games that you're personally using right now that help your mental health?
So this is probably more just personally for me, but I love rhythm games as a way to kind of like disconnect, and I feel like they kind of induce this sort of like flow state in a lot of ways for me, which for me is especially helpful. Plus, I just think music, depending on who you are, I think for a lot of people, music is just like helpful. It kind of gets us in whatever kind of mood we want to be in. And there's a lot of research about, like, especially on the mental health side of things, when we're treating like depression, there's this idea of sort of helping people develop a form of mastery over something, like something that they feel like they can be improving upon, whether that be exercise or a specific hobby or even a video game. And so I think, like, for me, that's where I find rhythm games to be especially helpful, is that I can sort of like see my improvement across, and I don't take it super seriously, but for me, that's kind of my like go-to for times when I need to just kind of disconnect or decompress.
Wow, Grzly, that's actually great that you mentioned rhythm games, because I personally really, really love Osu. I don't play a lot of other rhythm games, but yeah, what you mentioned about being in that state of flow and being able to see your improvement and kind of give yourself goals to work towards, I think that's very, very important in maintaining your mental health. For me, aside from rhythm games, I really like games such as Animal Crossing and Breath of the Wild. I think especially during, the pandemic time, the peak of COVID, when we were all stuck inside, being able to hop on Animal Crossing with my friends and use it as a way to keep in touch and hang out, even though we couldn't see each other physically. Like, I remember some of my friends, actually, their wedding got canceled, and so they held a ceremony in Animal Crossing New Horizons instead and invited all of us. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone when I say that having that form of, I don't want to say escapism, but being able to still have a method to see each other and hang out really, really helped to keep me sane during those times of social isolation. So
Definitely. And how about yourself, Rosie? Is there anything that you play that keeps you centered?
Yeah, I mean, I always will go back to comfort games. And it's the same with like TV, I guess, as well. Like, I always have shows that I will go back to. Stardew Valley is one of them. I can spend my whole life in that game. I love it so much. Animal Crossing as well is one. But I also really like replaying story games that I know exactly what's going to happen, even if it is like I'll just play The Last of Us again and again and again, which sounds weird, but like I know that there's not going to be any surprises, and like if I find something new, that's fun. I haven't found anything new in ages because I've played through it too many times, but having that comfort is something that's huge for me, and that kind of does change over time as well. But I've recently really got into mobile games, just like small, more casual games, to just so that my brain doesn't have to think or be aware as much, or it can focus on something else, and so then I can process something like kind of in the background of also doing something else, if that makes sense. It changes a lot.
I do really think like maybe like mobile games often for me they definitely fill a gap where, you know, something like maybe a fidget toy or a fidget spinner would go, something I could just like focus on just to get rid of like the boredom and just allow me to hyper focus on one thing rather than just be thinking about every single thing under the sun at that moment. So let's move the conversation on a little bit. Historically, you've seen media traditionally, say, demonizing video games when linked to mental health, like video games make you violent. We've talked a little bit about how games can positively affect your mental health, but is there anything that you'd like say to these people to be like, yo, this is unsubstantiated, or there's so many more benefits? Like, if you had the chance to talk to these people, like, what would you say to them? Sorry, this wasn't exactly on the list beforehand, so this is like kind of like off the top of my head right now. So does anyone want to take point on that?
Did we just do the
Same,
exact
yeah.
same thing?
That's okay.
I was just going to say, like, I think it's always wise to kind of come at it from a point of view is that we're not saying that, or at least I'm not saying that games are 100% all of the time going to be beneficial for your mental health. Like, this doesn't happen with anything, and I think it's everything in moderation. And you just kind of have to take research, especially if it's been done by certain bodies of people, or maybe groups that have a slightly different interest in why they're doing the research. Like, you just kind of have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt. But ultimately, I think with these sorts of things, it only calls for more research to be done to actually look into all of these claims that are being made, because it's constantly in the news, it's constantly in on social media, but there's no real evidence to back it up from a non-biased research group. And so I just think it's wise to be able to take more of a balanced approach, understand where their concerns are coming from, but also kind of reassure them that there is good that comes from this as well. And we're seeing that more and more and more in media that's coming out as well. So yeah, I get where their concerns come from, but I also would like to broaden the horizons about the good that gaming can do as well.
Of course. Yeah. That's great to hear. Everything in moderation, as you say. Of course, there are definitely some negatives. That, video game addiction is a real thing. And like you say, make sure that you're being mindful of the amount of time that you're putting into things. So, Rosie, specifically for you, we'd love to know more about how Safe in Our World works and the things that you do. I know you do a lot of work with industry devs. Did you want to go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So for context, Safe in Our World is a mental health charity focused on the games industry specifically. And what we're trying to do is eliminate stigma around mental health within the industry side of things, as well as looking at mental health as a whole with gamers and game culture. And so my role specifically is more about content and community. So I try and frame the discussions around mental health through the lens of gaming. But what we do at Safe in Our World, we're quite a small team. So there's only 3 of us right now, and we launched 4 years ago this October. So we're still relatively new. However, the work that we're doing, I think, is very much needed, and not something that I'd seen before I joined, especially worldwide. And so what we do is we have a program called Level Up Mental Health, and that is a huge scope for any global company within the industry in any capacity, whether that's developer, publisher, press. I'm forgetting all the other companies right now, recruitments, like everything. Any company that is related to games can join. And it's meant to be more of a taking responsibility and taking a stand for I said taking a lot there, for prioritizing well-being in the workplace, and making our industry not only a safer place to work, but also a safer place to exist in and flourish. And so we do a lot of work with companies, or like people like you, like gaming podcasts, for example, are doing a lot of different work to be able to support marginalized groups. And we try and, because this is why I think I've got ADHD. I have like 8 different conversations in my head that I'm going on about, and I know they're all linked, but then I start saying it, and then no one else knows what's going on. So
well, you're making a lot of sense on this end. It's absolutely fine. I know exactly what you mean. Don't worry. Yeah, I know there's wires crossed sometimes, and it's like, oh, there's a million things that I want to say. Which one do I say first? I get that.
Honestly, I just there's so many things I want to say, and none of them are coming out right. This is why I shouldn't be doing a podcast.
No, you're absolutely fine. Listen, I do the exact same thing. And it's literally why there's so many like quiet spots on this podcast from time to time. It's just me like processing, okay, which one am I picking out of the air first to put forward. So yeah, you're doing great.
The reason for you to be doing this, it keeps people interested, and they're like, what's she gonna do next? I don't know. You don't know.
Me neither.
It's fun.
It's
But yeah,
it's great.
in summary, we work with companies to help them put in place wellbeing strategies. We've done consultation on games to make sure that their mental health representation is accurate and not stigmatizing. We work with people to train their staff on mental health awareness, and we've also done like community manager training, for example, which was open to all community managers for free. We've trained up, I think it's like 350 community managers now in free mental health awareness training, and given them like we made this toolkit that was all about how you can combat toxicity within your community, how can you support yourself and show up for yourself, and set your boundaries and stick with them and things like that, which I think is really important, especially within the content space as well, because it's still very relevant. So yeah, that's kind of like a lot of the work that we do, and I'm not involved in most of it. I just do like podcasty things and website things and like
Yeah, you have your own
signposting
podcast as
and
well. Do you
talks. So
do
yeah,
you deep dive into a bunch of wonderful conversations on your own podcast? Then tell us about that.
do.
What is that called specifically
So
for
that's a
the listeners out there?
Safe Space podcast. It
Safe
is.
Space podcast.
I adore it so much. I've spoken to so many wonderful people, and we've got one episode coming up soon that is with, I haven't announced this yet, so I hope no one gets mad at me for it, but
Oh, juicy
with...
takes. Let's go. Juicy news.
It's with Charlotte McBurney, who plays Amicia in the Plague Tale series, and she talks
Ooh.
about her experiences in voice acting, and it's quite heavy, but it's very good. And like being able to talk to people like that, like we spoke to Adam Harrington, who played Sindri in God of War, which is one of the best conversations of my entire life, and I felt a lot of closure from that. But basically talking to lots of different people about their experiences, about mental health, about what their role is in games and how they're making our community a better place, and that's kind of the gist of the podcast, I suppose. Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to tune in and have a listen myself. And I hope all of our listeners will go out there and listen to Safe Space also. Right. Yes. I think it's like quite interesting during while you were talking. There seems to be this sense, and even as you were saying, you were apologizing for yourself and talking about, oh, I might have ADHD. It constantly feels like there's this sense of we have to like apologize for our mental health or be ashamed of our mental health. Do you all find that that's something that's changing now, or is it there's still this over prevailing like, oh, if I have any mental health problems, I'm seen as weak? I'm putting up quotation marks there for our audio listeners, by the way. You're not weak if you have any mental health issues. Just to make sure, just to put that out there. Is that changing? Do you feel that that's changing, that view?
I feel like it is over time. It seems like, I think we're improving a bit, when it comes to the language we use and just being more open and sort of vulnerable about our own experiences. I feel like I'm kind of in a weird position with this sometimes because as a psychologist, I think people kind of assume that I have it all figured out and that that I don't have any like mental health concerns or anything like that because I do this sort of job. When in reality, it's very different than that for me. So it's been a journey for me to learn to talk about that more openly and try to balance that with like my professional identity. But I do feel like overall, I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're moving in a good direction overall.
I'm glad to hear it.
I wanted to echo GRZLY for sure. I don't think you wouldn't think as many people would expect that from me as a non-mental health professional, but as an advocate, definitely. Like I actually to a point of whether it's still happening has not happened. I want to say in the past year, 2 years maybe, but it definitely happened early on in my career where people were like, "Wow, look at you like you're a mess." I don't remember somebody specifically. I had tweeted and they're like, I don't know how could you be saying that when like last week you were talking about how unwell you were feeling? And I think I had tweeted something uplifting. I don't remember the exact details, but I remember I felt like crap, and the notion, the connotation was definitely like, I don't want to hear you talking about, inspirational ideas or like, hey, maybe do this to help yourself when you yourself haven't figured it out. And I internalized that for a very, very long time and have pretty recently come out on the other end, like saying, actually, I don't think you have to have everything figured out in order to
Mm.
talk about stuff, or nobody would talk about anything, right? Like, you can be perfecting a craft as you are discussing it. And in fact, I think the fact that I am in therapy, the fact that I am, if anybody wants to use me as an example, and please don't, but I understand that, like, as a content creator, I'm definitely putting myself in a position where somebody might. If you are going to use me as an example of anything, please use me as an example of, like, somebody who is a work in progress, and you can be a work in progress too, and should be, and that's okay. So I know that's a roundabout way. I don't think anybody has said that to me recently in the past 2 years, not that I'm, like, the judge of the zeitgeist, but, I do think we've had a shift. Something definitely broke in 2020 where people were like, "No, I have to talk about the fact that I feel horrible right now. I
Mm.
feel alone and scared, and what is this other feeling? I haven't had to think about my feelings until now, and now I'm sitting in my house and I have nothing else to do." And so I think that that really turned the tide for a lot of people looking for mental health affirmations and information. But I totally agree with Grizzly. We're not there yet. Um, and I might be biased from my perspective, but I do feel like we have made a turn of, like, we're going to talk about our mental health, and you can't turn that back necessarily. But I do think how far forward we thought we went is not as far as we went.
Mm.
I hope I was really strong until that last bit. I hope that
No,
makes
no, no. I feel you. I feel you. So that kind of nicely brings me to my next question, actually, because I wanted to talk about your personal experiences as being visible online content creators, and how, if you're open to it, talking about how that's impacted your personal mental health. And of course, if there are any certain approaches that you've had to develop for maintaining your mental health because of that.
I have a lot to say about
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
So first of all, I want to say I love what Em said about, not wanting to be perceived as a role model, but it's kind of
Mhm.
inevitable because we are so public and so visible, as you've said too. Yeah. I've personally been told that, sometimes when I'm on stream and I open up about my struggles, like some people have told me that, oh, like, don't you think you're being like a little too like vulnerable or honest? Because, people come to you because you're very positive and uplifting, and, you're wholesome, and you're people's comfort streamer. They don't come to you because they want to hear like complaints and be reminded about the struggles in their own life.
Mm.
So that
That's a-
has definitely like led to me trying to like, I guess, like, I don't want to say cover up, but not talk about those things on stream as often. And I think
Mhm.
also with being a visible content creator, another facet of it is that, when you are creating content and you're being perceived by the public to such an extent, it's so easy to start tying your self-worth to numbers and metrics, and whether, your last post has been performing well or how it's been doing. And then from that, you kind of can't help but focus on what you're not doing or what you're lacking. Like, since I've started creating content, I've definitely asked myself when I started streaming, I told myself, oh, I can't get too hung up about numbers because I don't want to be that kind of person. I always want to be grateful that even one person came to my stream and, spent their time and energy watching me. But lately I have been asking myself, oh, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, is it that I'm not funny enough or not entertaining enough? How can I be more engaging? How can I be better looking? Asking about all these things that really lead you to doubt yourself. And I feel like if I wasn't a content creator, I would never be considering these things. So there's definitely a, people see the pros of being visible and creating content. They think, oh wow, like, you know, you get to do your job or what you love for fun, and turn that into your job. You get to sit around and play video games all day, right? That's like, we all know that's a myth. We all know how much work content creators actually put into their craft. So I'm putting that in quotes for all the audio only listeners, but yeah, it's definitely a lot. And for me, I'm still, as Em mentioned, a work in progress with trying to figure out, oh, what tactics can I develop to, you know, combat those things and keep my mental health in better shape. And one of the things for me is like having a structure to my routine. I found that as someone who is highly suspected of having ADHD, a lot of my daily life schedule actually revolves around my stream schedule. So I'm trying to change my stream schedule to be more less, I guess, more regen and less degen. Because I previously streamed like very late at night or in the evening, and because of that, I'm like more active at night when, you know, I'm sleeping during the day and stuff, and that's really not healthy. So yeah, that's one of the tactics for me.
I completely feel you on that. I just wanted to go back to something that you mentioned about this idea that there's kind of like a fine balance between how much of yourself that you're allowed to show to an audience. Like from my personal experience, sometimes there's like, how much of the real you do you want to show versus like this character, I guess, that you're kind of building up for an audience, especially to use myself as an example with everything that's been happening with the trans community recently. There's a lot of people mental health wise going through it right now, including myself. And I'm constantly on a tightrope of like, okay, so how much of this do I want to share, or do I want to be that shining beacon for people and just like push everything going around up here just like down at the detriment to myself, you know? It's like something definitely I've been struggling with. And I think, is there anything, do you all kind of echo that kind of sentiment? Is that something that you would have had experience with?
I think I went through a period where I was so hyper aware of that. And I was like, well, I took those comments to heart as well, of like, how could you be talking about mental health and positivity if you don't feel that all the time? And at the time, I was like, okay, yeah, if I want people to feel good, I need to act like everything is fine all the time. And then eventually I cracked and I cried on stream, which, while cathartic and like totally okay to do, I don't enjoy doing. Like, that's not how I want to spend my precious, you know, my community's precious moments on stream with me. But yeah, I cracked on stream and I was like, hold on, no, I feel like crap. Everything's crap. Everything sucks. While I don't want to sit here and burden you all with everything that's going on, I can't come on stream and just tell you that everything's fine and dandy when I'm breaking inside. Like, that's not fair to me, and it's also does not feel fair to all of you who might be struggling and feel like you have to hide how you're feeling while you're in my show. Like, that's not the precedent that I want to set. And granted, I have a very niche audience because of you know, it's still a niche topic that I talk about and how I do it. But it was that moment that I think I kind of figured out closer, that what I needed to constantly be doing is reminding myself that there's a balance. It's not a strictly, oh, I can never talk about how I'm feeling. And it's not a, oh, I always have to be positive. Some days, like right now, before I came on my stream today, my kid was crying. I could not get him down for like 20 minutes. He was super upset. I was getting wound up. I needed to take 5 minutes. And then I came on stream. I was like, I had a really horrible time and I almost went totally into venting mode. And then I was like, I checked in with myself. I was like, what do I need right now? Do I need this space to feel like, a stable moment for just me? Or do I need this space to feel like for people who are watching me to just feel like they're being vented at, whether or not they consent to it, right? Which is also like your community can't exactly consent to you being like, now I'm gonna dump everything that's going on in my life. You make me. So it was that moment of balance and reminding myself that I need to do those little check-ins. And I was like, hey, how about this? I'm having a lot of feelings right now. It's not up to my community to process them, but maybe I can take a second. And then when I do process them, I can bring them to my community like, hey, this is going on and it really sucks. But I don't necessarily think it's fair to just be like, here's everything going on wrong with my life. But at the same time, have I also done that? Yes, absolutely, totally tried to give, all the content warnings and everything like that. But I definitely have come on and been like, everything sucks right now. So all of that to say back, like, there's definitely a balance, and it's definitely about what you first and foremost are comfortable with, and you have to know your audience, and you have to know what your community is there for. It's also always fair to do like a temperature check with the community and be like, how are y'all feeling right now? Because
Mm.
maybe a lot of people are also feeling down and they want a space of like a kind of a virtual hug, right? And where
Yeah.
they feel like they can vent. Or maybe they all want to space, you know what? Let's just all play this game and talk about this game and nobody can. But like taking that second to reassess for you, for them, is probably the best thing that I have learned for me and have by far not perfected.
I'll definitely, I'll take that on board for myself as well. And what about yourself, Grzly? How is your content creation career like intersected with your own personal mental health?
That's a really good question. I agree with a lot of that has been said so far, and I think it was Rosie earlier was talking about or mentioned boundaries, and I feel like that ends up being kind of like the main lesson I have learned through 3 or 4 years of doing this. I mean, I feel like initially I really was very open about me being a psychologist and like how I really wanted to kind of intersect that, but I've found myself kind of pulling back because I do think a lot of people come to my stream and of course they have questions and I'm perfectly happy to answer questions, but the sort of like trauma dump in my chat, I'm like, I don't really know how to respond to that in the moment. Is this really the medium to even respond to that in the first place? So yeah, it becomes a very difficult balance. And for me, like I find myself often sort of just like canceling streams, frequently when I'm not maybe in a mentally good place. And I feel like I sort of have the privilege to do that, and that streaming is not my livelihood, and so I'm able to kind of do that freely. So I really feel for the content creators that do this full time that don't have the ability to just cancel maybe as frequently as they would want to, and maybe at times kind of have to push through that or just kind of be their authentic selves on camera, which is very difficult. I mean, I think it's weird, when you think about how much we sit in front of a camera and these like parasocial relationships. I think it's very hard for people who don't do this type of stuff to really understand what our experience is like. But very much again echo what everything that has been said, that it is very difficult, I think, to be vulnerable, because it's like we want to be authentic people, of course, but we are also mindful that like we have an audience and there is like these metrics on Twitch that we have to be like cognizant of, and like it's so much to juggle. But I think for me, like I've really tried to be continually more open and authentic, and much more mindful of when I just need to be like, no, like I'm just not responding to that, or I'm not having a great day, I'm not going into it, I'm gonna kind of leave it there, and that we're just gonna move on from there. So I certainly think it's been a difficult balance to balance it with my profession, and I've had to sort of separate those two things a little bit. I still like doing some mental health stuff with my stream, of course, but I've had to really just be very mindful about like what is too much, and making sure this stays as a hobby for me and something that is still enjoyable and more about the social community aspects for me.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No. You probably have a more pertinent point. So you're
Oh, no.
That's why we brought you onto the show. Go ahead.
Because Whinnaay and Grzly both brought up metrics, and so I just wanted to caveat there something. I think as somebody, I spent like the first, I think of the almost 6 years that I've been streaming, I probably spent the first like 4.5 obsessed with my metrics, and I think a lot of people are in that place, and a lot of people from just observation, your mental health as a creator really tanks around those numbers, because it's a very easy way to measure your worth, right? Number big, good. Number bad, I feel bad. And I don't think you can escape it. And I think everybody ends up figuring out how you want to internalize that, whether you stop caring or you do care. But the thing that if I could ever pass along anything, the thing that really helped me is accepting the fact that it is okay to care about your metrics
Mhm.
because a lot of things depend on them. Your partnership status, right, on any platform you're on, uh, Twitter engagement means more people will be able to, see your
Mhm.
stream. Number X means you're going to be partnered on Twitch. Number X means you're going to get a sponsorship, and a sponsorship means you can continue doing this full time, or you can't do this full time, right? X amount of viewers means advertisement money, means you can keep doing this full time or not. I think for so long, and there's this like weird pressure that content creation is a hobby, and therefore you are not allowed to feel stressed or angry or upset when X amount of people don't show up to stream, and now your sponsor is going to pull out or whatever it is. And that's so not fair to you. And actually, it's not fair to your community and everybody else involved. I have had so much of an easier time just accepting, I'm not saying it makes it easier to see, that lower number, lower engagement and everything like that. That takes a toll on you. But just accepting the fact that like, hey, I am going to care about my numbers, and that does not diminish the fact that I also appreciate every single person who takes any single moment to watch me. But these numbers affect my livelihood. They affect how much time I can dedicate to this. It's okay for me to be freaking upset about it, and it's okay for me to be excited about it. And
Mhm.
again, that doesn't necessarily change the outcome one way or another, but just like accepting that it's okay to have those feelings about that. I mean, it blew my mind. And it was after
Mm.
a conversation with a therapist. He's like, wait, but like, why are you not allowed to be upset about that? It sucks. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it does suck. And
Mhm.
since then, like, it hits a little easier. Like I don't turn on my viewership numbers anymore. But I used to not do it and then like look at it anyway and it's like stress myself out anyway. Now I don't do it because I'm genuinely like I know if I'm gonna look at it, I'm gonna be upset and that's not what I want right now. When I'm later
Yeah.
in like evaluating mode, I'll look at it later and look at the trend maybe over a week or a month. That'll give me more information. But like just it's okay to be bummed out about your numbers. It's okay.
Mm.
That's it.
I've from a personal point of view, I've definitely had to like try and like compartmentalize that as well in terms of like just do not look at numbers for the entirety of stream and just like separate that part out because like if I see the number and it's not quite what I hoped, then exactly you're gonna get bummed out straight away. Um, in terms of that as well, I always find it helps to look at the because we can be so insular about these things too, and think like we're so isolated and alone, and it's like everything that we're doing is the cause of this. Where I've had to be reminded on multiple occasions that there are like ebbs and flows in the industry too, and that the whole everybody's numbers could be falling at the exact same rate, but because we don't communicate with each other about that kind of thing, we don't necessarily know that. So we think, oh, it's me. I'm obviously the problem. I'm doing something wrong. Where the whole platform has lost like millions of viewers on that specific platform that we're being watched on. But
I
again, we
also
just
used to like find the one person who was doing really well and be like, see,
yeah, and like
they're not
hyper
affected
focus on
by it.
them.
It means I suck. So their numbers are still fine. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas like that's the exception to the rule and not the rule itself in most cases. So yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. So if you could say speak to content creators out there who are say going through a similar thing, and we've mentioned some of the coping strategies, or just people in general who are generally just like going through it, having a bit of a time. How would you recommend that they use video games in their personal lives to help them with their mental health, like without obviously going overboard on it or leading to any kind of like reliance?
So I worked with the Mental Health Foundation, I think it was last year now, and we did like this research project that basically looked at like, I think it was like 24, it wasn't a huge number of people, but 24 gamers who tracked their like habits and how they felt over the course of a few weeks. I can't remember the details specifically, but essentially what a lot of people found is that it's a very personal thing. It's very dependent on your personal relationship with games. And the more aware you become of how you feel when you're playing them, or how you play when you're feeling a certain way, for example, the better you can feel about choosing the games that make you feel good when you're in a bad mood, or make you relaxed when you're like really on one, you know? And so I think there's something to be said for trying it out and seeing what works for you, because some people love, you know, shooty bangs, and that's great, and that's what they need at the end of the day, and I totally get that. Some people love horror games because it's like you're not thinking about anything else but the fact that it's terrifying, and that's what you've got to focus on, and you can't think about everything else that's going on in your life. Some people like Animal Crossing, and it's just like nice wholesome games because that's what you need right now. And there's always different sides to everything, and it doesn't matter if it's something that's not quite working for you. If all of your friends are like, oh yeah, I love doing this so much, this makes me feel great, and you're playing it and you're like, I just can't understand why, I don't get it. I like Power Wash Simulator, which is a fantastic game in my opinion. Oh my gosh, I loved that so much. Didn't think I would. Start playing it, and then it was like 2 hours had passed and I didn't know what I was doing. But the point is that games are personal to everyone, and if you're not sure if it's not working yet, maybe just try another one and see what happens. Maybe try playing with a friend, or you know, just talking with a friend online whilst you play a game. They don't have to be playing it with you. Just little things like that. I don't know, it's okay to like experiment, I guess.
Yeah, that's amazing. For me, I definitely say those types of games, if anybody needs a recommendation, like I try and separate out certain games that I don't play on stream, just as a treat for myself as well, from a content creator point of view. Like certain games, like, you know what, I don't necessarily want to make this into work, I'm just going to keep this for myself. I just recently bought there's a series called The Room, not the Tommy Wiseau movie The Room, but yes, the Room on Steam, if you go and check that out. It's also a mobile game, I think, but it's just like a series of puzzle boxes that you have to work through, and it is like, I don't know, there's something about puzzles that just like do it for me. But puzzle boxes in general, that like strokes my brain in all the right places, something well. So yeah, indeed. Yeah, just to make sure, Grzly, did you have anything to add there? Sorry, you were muted for a second.
I'll echo what both of you said, and I love that you referenced the Tommy Wiseau movie, because I love that movie, but I also love those games for the exact same reasons. But yeah, I was just going to add, just being sort of mindful about your own emotional experience, like while you're playing games, and even afterward, like giving some thought to like, okay, how was that for me? Like, what was that like for me? And kind of like you were saying, you know, I think it's definitely nice to have certain games that are sort of just for you, because for people that don't stream, I don't think they understand necessarily what it's like to be playing a game while also trying to like commentate and also make sure it's like entertaining and like you're being funny, and like it's a lot of effort, and you really don't fully get to immerse yourself in the game you're playing or really enjoy it sometimes. And so I do think it's like really important to have those kind of games that are just like for ourselves, that we know are enjoyable for us, or allow us to be social, or allow us to be a little bit more isolated into ourselves when we want to be. So just wanted to echo all the amazing things that both of you said.
Yeah. Also, maybe if you're in a bad mood, do not play games that make you saltier. Like I don't think I'll ever pick up Overwatch 2 if I'm in a bad mood. Yeah, just in general. Right. Let's move on to our final topic of conversation real quick, because we don't have a lot of time left here on the podcast today. I want to talk about representation of mental health in video games real quick. Good representation, bad representation, who got it right, who got it wrong. I know that like for a very long time there has been like the overuse of mentally ill people as the enemy, whether or not it's like you know, people who are seen as I'm going to use the word crazy, or you know, or enemies being called like psychos in general, like in the Borderlands series. What is your opinion on this? Are there any like games that you point out and say, okay, this was not great, and is there any games that you'd say, okay, this does an amazing job at representing mental health?
So I think a big positive one that pops up for me that I always recommend people is Celeste, which I don't know if any of you have played that, but I I really enjoy the way that game sort of like talks about mental health while also not always really directly talking about it, but it's sort of just the mental health has so much to do with self-talk and the way that we speak to ourselves and the way we kind of perceive ourselves with respect to like the world around us. I think Celeste does a really good job of really looking at that very closely. You know, there's this sort of dialogue back and forth with her, the main character. I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who haven't played it, but I would highly recommend it because I think it does a really great job, and it's very, I don't know, it's just very emotionally immersive in a lot of ways, and I just think it does an excellent job. As far as bad ones, there's probably too many to mention. I would just echo what you said, and also add that there's so much research that, you know, people with mental health concerns are far more likely to be the victims of crime than to ever perpetrate it. And I always just kind of want to hammer that home because there's so much media, kind of like you were mentioning out there, that really likes to use mental health issues and mental health disorders as, like you said, like as the antagonist or the villain in some way. And so I just wanted to also mention that as well.
Yeah, of course. And if I go back and touch on Celeste real quick, I know we've talked about that on the podcast before. Absolutely fantastic game. I believe there's this the thing that struck me about that, other than the entire through line about being about that character's mental health and overcoming obstacles. The section with the Leaf, which is, I feel like an amazing section to go through, where it is nothing like the rest of the game, but you take a pause and you go through this moment where you're literally having a breathing exercise. And I found that was actually incredibly helpful to me personally as well, just to try and, like, if I'm, you know, I don't really have panic attacks, but I've kind of, I think I've had like one or two because I'm slightly claustrophobic in my life. But if I'd had that information at the moment to be like, stop, take a moment and just like breathe and like focus on a singular thing, that was super helpful for me, just to try and like calm myself in future instances where I've been in situations which were very stressful. So absolutely fantastic game. Does anybody else have any extras that they want to point out specifically?
Oh yeah, let's Rosie, did you want to take Stardew Valley?
No, you go Stardew Valley. I've got other ones in the chamber.
Oh, okay. You said you love Stardew Valley so much. So, with no spoilers, if you decide to become friends with Shane, that is kind of known, I think, among the mental health professionals that I talk to. That's the one that they like to point to be like, that's a good one. That's really good. They do a really good job modeling how to interact with somebody who's going through something, and a really good job modeling what you should do if you're witnessing it. So, like, that's fantastic. In terms of like good and bad, I like to bring up Life is Strange, again with no spoilers, as one that like teeters on it for me, because again, it's like kind of using mental illness as a plot device, but it does teach you like how to talk to somebody who's going through mental health distress. But then I have found people who had a hard time passing through that episode, that like if they don't do a good job, there's not necessarily a lesson for it, which is why I say like it teeters on it for me. Like if you don't do if you don't pass the test in this mental health challenge, this character has a, I want to spoil it, so like I'm talking around it, it's like making it worse, but yeah, so if you kind of don't do it right, the rest of the game has a lot of consequences, but you don't necessarily learn what you could have done better. You just kind of have to deal with those consequences, which I suppose is also life. But that's why it teeters on it for me. Like it still uses it a little plot pointy, but it's an amazing depiction of it in and of itself. And then a lot of people talk about Senua's Sacrifice, Hellblade. So Rosie, I don't know if I was taking that one from you.
It's fine. I've got another. You keep going.
Okay, because you actually interviewed, right? You interviewed
Paul Fletcher,
psychologist. Yeah, Paul Fletcher, who was actually who helped create the depiction of psychosis in that game. God of War has touched upon aspects of mental health very well. So we're seeing I think the interesting part about it is that the more mental health and the conversation around mental health is in the zeitgeist, you're just starting to get more games that just have a lot more ethos, really, right? Because mental health is just talking. It's kind of a umbrella term for like they talk about feeling stuff, and so like the better games out there ultimately will grab you in a way because they don't skirt those topics, because they go and dive in and here's what it feels like to deal with XYZ kind of thing. And so yeah, I think we're going to be seeing more and more of that as writers are embracing that as a tool. And then my favorite one that nobody expects is Kingdom Hearts, uh, Birth by Sleep. A lot of people don't know. It's literally the character gets lost in darkness for 10 years, wandering around while listening to all the negative voices tell her how like horrible she is and how nobody really loved her and all of her friends were only there for no reason. Like, yeah, like tell me that that's not a metaphor for depression. Try and tell me that. I like will not accept it. But it's also just like a Disney, Square Enix game. But yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
My absolute favorite is Undertale. It is an absolute treasure to me, and it's not like super, you know, in your face about mental health at all, but it's just the way that they present characters as ultimately like meaning well, often flawed, but they have the potential to be good. Like I just love that whole like story so much. And yeah, oh my god, I cried so much when I played that game for the first
Mm.
time. So yeah, I think there's so many games out there that aren't necessarily like you don't think about mental health being the first one of it. Like there are things like Hellblade where you see, like said already about there's a more accurate depiction of what psychosis can look like and you get to experience that as the character. But ultimately I think people find themselves in characters, whether it's like a little bit implied or whether it's actually lore, and that's what people hold on to and start to like connect with people, with people, with games, with characters. So yeah, that was Undertale for me. I loved it so much, would recommend.
Heck yeah. And what about yourself, Win? What would you point out? Like what
Wow,
titles?
so many good games that were mentioned. Definitely for me, like I felt it when Em mentioned Shane from Stardew, because I really really like him, and I think that yeah, great example. Undertale is a big one for me as well. This conversation actually just reminded me that there are a lot of indie games I think that tackle the conversation around mental health, because it is a tough conversation to have, I think. And I just remembered that I don't want to say, oh my gosh, back in my day, because that makes me sound really old, but I don't think I am. But I remember about a decade ago, there was a game that was released and it was called Depression Quest. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
I don't know this. Could you
Yes.
explain it for those who might
Yeah,
not
yeah,
know about
of
it?
course. Yeah, so basically it is a game about like you play as this person and they just go through their regular daily life. You make decisions for them on what to do. It's like you living your everyday life as per usual, but the thing is that they have depression, or they suffer from depression, and it was just a very well made game that goes to show that, oh, like people that have to live with depression, you can do like everything right, you can make the correct choices, but sometimes things just don't work out, or it feels like you fall a little short, and that's just the struggle, because you just have to live with it and things don't work out. And it sounds depressing, but I think for a lot of people it helps to build empathy and make them aware that yeah, this is kind of like how you said about I don't remember what game you mentioned, but the person that had the character that had psychosis, and getting to see that experience through their eyes. I think this helped to bring more awareness that yeah, sometimes the things that there are things you want to do in life that you just cannot, because of this condition, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I remember that was a very, very eye-opening game to play for me. Because again, it came out in 2013. Mental health wasn't as widely discussed or as big of a topic. We didn't know as much about it, or it wasn't as publicly discussed. And then a personal favorite of mine is an indie game called Missed Messages. And I don't want to.
Messages.
Yeah, it's a very, very short game. It's very like narrative based. There are multiple endings. Trigger warning, it is very heavy. It does deal with and mention depression, suicide, some other sensitive topics. So just as a heads up, I don't want to spoil anything, but I really, really enjoyed it because the main character, it does hint at her being queer, and the story focuses on her relationship with her roommate and the struggles that the people around you go through and how you can deal with that.
I'm just pointing out, is this the right game that we
yes,
found
yes,
here?
that is the game. Yeah.
Missed
So
messages.
There's a lot of dialogue.
Steam as well right now.
Is that a queer relationship that I see there too? That's bonus points for me. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So just as, and I think the I don't know how much they mention it because it's been a while since I've played, but I think the main character is Asian as well. So like getting to hear her comments about like, how she doesn't want to do her schoolwork. There's a lot of pressure. The other girl like talks about how her parents wanted her to go into, like medicine, not pursue art or whatever, like stuff that really, really hits close to home as well. So just a nice, I remember playing that game when I felt at a very low point in my life, and despite the heavy subject material, it did help to get my mind off of things, and yeah, it's cathartic in a way.
That's absolutely fantastic to hear all of the games. Now, I'm going to do something that chat's probably going to groan at, but I was just thinking about games with like mental health representation in general, and I flashed back to the game that I constantly talk about, which is one of my favorite games of all time, but the original Final Fantasy VII, and like just thinking about there's a sequence in that game which I won't spoil, which heavily goes into the idea of a character and their state of mind, and it was just occurred to me that like it happened, that was way back in 1997, that there were actual narratives like focusing on characters' mental health issues and psychosis and how that affects them in the narrative going forward. And I'm just like, you know what, that's another reason that's one of my favorite games, just because of that representation right there. Just wanted to point that out again. You can all groan at it, chat, if you like, but you know what, it's a fantastic game, and I'm just going to keep saying it. Make sure you play it. Right, so we're going to finish up here real quick, but before we do, we always finish with a little section we like to call quick fire questions, and we always like to surprise our guests with this at the end. So everybody unmute your mics and get ready to answer some quick fire questions. This is just literally off the top of your heads. I'm going to point the question at one. Usually we have one guest for this that we point these questions at, but I'm going to point this at one particular person, and then the rest of you get to jump in afterwards once they've answered. All right. Okay. So we'll just go down the line. I'm going to start with you, Grzly.
Oh no.
What was the one game that defined your childhood?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, deep question first.
Define your childhood right now.
Whoa.
Which video game do you relate to your childhood?
Oh, wow. I have to think about that for just a moment.
That's okay. If anybody else has an answer, they want to jump in with that, you go straight ahead.
Tetris.
Okay, that's a good one.
The Hobbit, PS2.
The Hobbit, PS2.
I'm going to give a weird answer here, but it was one of the first Tony Hawk games on PlayStation 1. And I don't know. It was just like, it was the early days of those games. It was like finally you get to really like customize yourself, and eventually I think you could even like upload a picture of your face and like put it on the skater, and that was kind of cool. But
wow,
I don't know, it was just like the music of it, and just like I don't know, I was like kind of obsessed with it, and I had friends at school that we would like nerd out about it and like talk about tricks we could pull off. So I think it's probably more wrapped up in those kind of memories. But for me, that was like a big part of my childhood.
Oh yeah. And what about you, Win? One game that defined your childhood?
The first title that came to mind was Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Hell yeah, that's a great game. I love that. Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, this is also going to be pointed at Win. Who's your favorite video game character? Quick fire.
It has to be Sonic.
Sonic? Okay,
I
that's
just
valid.
love his attitude and his, his love, the drive for adventure. He's so carefree. He's my childhood hero growing up, so it has to be him.
Anybody else want to jump in with your favorite character?
Crash Bandicoot.
Awesome. We're collecting the mascots now. Let's go.
Yeah, it was great.
Anybody else?
The Labrador from Nintendogs.
You know what? That is valid.
I love that.
I'm like so anxious. I don't know any names of people. I'm stressed.
That's okay. What about yourself, Marie?
Oh, Sora.
Sora. Okay. Cool. Right. Again, also pointed at Mxiety here. What's been your favorite game released in this last year? So 2022 till current.
Oh yeah, it's easy. Okay, well, so it depends on genre, but God of War Ragnarok broke me and rebuilt me in ways I didn't know I needed breaking and rebuilding. And I watched it as I was taking care of my son in his first days of life. My husband played it, and I watched it while I sat on the couch and everything, and it hit in so many ways because of that. And then Disney Dreamlight Valley, hands down, just for everything else.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in with your favorite from this last year?
I have to agree on Ragnarok. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Amazing.
That's valid. Absolutely fantastic. Cinematic masterpiece, I think. Definitely comes to mind with that. No, nothing you've enjoyed, Grzly or Win?
Cult of the Lamb. It just
Cult
feels like
of
a
the
weird
Lamb?
thing to say, but I just
Okay.
really love that game, and the art is super cute.
I'm pretty sure that won our game of the year as well. I have to double check that. But
yes, it did.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, it
did.
Yeah.
I mean, Gaming.
Yeah.
Oh, Cult is good, but I don't know if this counts because it wasn't technically released last year, but it got a lot of new updates. It has to be my game Genshin Impact for me.
Okay, yeah. If that's what you enjoyed the most, that's a valid answer. All right.
Just the exploration and the story has gotten so much better too. So, and the characters.
Heck yeah. Okay, Rosie.
Yes.
Which game do you most want a sequel to?
Oh.
Which games do you love that don't have a sequel that you'd like to see a sequel to?
Oh no. Oh god, I'm like all the games I ever played have just gone out of my head.
That's okay. If there's you have to think about that. Does anybody else want to jump in? Is there any games that you really want a sequel to?
Cult of the Lamb.
Cult of the Lamb
a second one.
Valid.
Oh my god,
Valid.
Stray. Even though I don't really see it
Stray?
as a sequel, I just love that game so much.
Heck yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, we need a Stray too. Yeah, that was a fantastic game. Win or Marie, do you want to jump in here? Games that you want a sequel to?
I'll take more God of War. But
More God of War?
yeah.
I feel like it ended
Also,
so
Kingdom
well,
Hearts.
though.
But we know we're getting a new Kingdom Hearts in 2037, so that's fine.
In the far off
At least
future.
At least you know it's coming. I think
That's
for me,
fair.
I'll forever be waiting for a Sonic Adventure 3.
Oh my god!
I love that. Yes, that works.
Speaking,
All
but
right.
a second. What's that last Sonic game that they did a fantastic job on that came out on the
Sonic
Switch?
Frontiers?
Yeah. No. The one.
Oh,
before
on the
that.
Switch?
The one that looked like the old Sonics.
Oh, Sonic Origins. Wait, no, it's not Sonic Origins. Sonic Mania?
Oh, yeah,
Yes!
Mania.
Yes. Take another
That's a
one.
fantastic
of those.
game. That needs
Even
a
though
sequel.
I sucked at it, I'll take another one of those.
I also sucked at it, but I enjoyed that game so much. Yes. All right. Okay, so back to Grzly. What's the game that you're most looking forward to coming out this year?
Oh. So it's sort of already out, but you know how games are. It's like everything's in early access now. So The Forest was a obsession of mine for a long time. And the sequel has, come out in the early. I haven't played it yet, so I'm really excited for that to fully release, so I can get super scared all over again.
Heck yeah. Anybody else? What games are you looking forward to this year?
Breath of the Wild, come on.
Yeah, Tears
Tears
of the Kingdom.
It's gonna be
I
so
mean, yeah,
good.
Tears of the Kingdom even. Sorry, I keep calling it Breath of the Wild too.
Well, it's Breath of the Wild
Um,
2 in
Breath
it,
of the Wild
so yeah.
2.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
but I know it's not that. But yeah, what is it like?
It's next
5
Friday.
days?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Less than a
It's
week.
coming. Let's go. And Marie, what about yourself?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what's up or down. I probably will be watching my partner play a lot of Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of one off the top of my head. So Tears of the Kingdom.
I'm gonna jump in here as well, and I'm gonna say Final Fantasy 16. That's looking
Okay.
like a good one. Yeah. All right. So next question. What is the one game, or what is one game you think everybody should play at least once in their life? Win. What do you think is a game people should play at least once in their life?
Oh, that's tough. I think Breath of the Wild actually. Breath of the Wild really changed my I think Breath of the Wild actually changed my life. Like I never played a Zelda game before.
That's a fantastic one to start on. Mhm.
Yeah, and like I would say it's hands down my favorite game of all time. Even as a Sonic fangirl, it's my favorite game of all time. Even like not talking about Genshin or any other game. It's just so transformative, and it's so the exploration is just it's so cathartic getting to walk around and explore and see something and just getting to go to it and really lose yourself in the game.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm, totally. And anybody else? Like, what one game do you think people should play?
Yeah, I think Breath of the Wild covers it. I literally was just talking about this with my partner. I was talking about the fact that it is literally for any skill set. Because if you want to kind of beat the tutorial and just go to Ganon, you could do that. You want to, make things really hard for yourself, you can. You want to just walk around, shooting birds and collecting apples from trees, do that. Like it's I think it's a great, here's a vague story, but also just enjoy yourself, but also, and then if they really don't want to do that, then Animal Crossing, Horizon.
Okay.
Because it did change a nation, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
It's absolutely fantastic what we saw with that. Okay, either Grzly or Rosie, do you want to jump in with a game that you think people should play at least once?
I would say the Stanley Parable. I don't know if any of you have played that, but
Good choice.
I don't know. There's just something about the writing. Everything about that game is just very unique, and it's just a really cool experience, and I think everyone should experience it once.
Yeah, get the Ultra Deluxe version. It's,
Yes, absolutely.
Pretty good. What about you, Rosie?
Mine would
Anything?
probably, yeah, a short hike. I absolutely adore that. It's like like 2 hours experience. I'm going to say experience because it doesn't, whilst it obviously is a game, it's just like so delightful. And I don't know, it's just so calming. Like I played it on a whim on stream, and then I just absolutely fell in love with it, and I'd highly recommend it. It's very, you can kind of do what you like you say, it's everything in your own time, but then there is like a underlying story, but it's a lot about exploration and just like talking to people, making friends, and making it to the top of the
Love
mountain.
that.
That's kind of it.
Oh my gosh. And that was called A Short Hike?
A short hike, yeah.
I've never heard of that one. I'll have to play that, obviously, at least once in my life. Right, now, we've only got 2 more questions. This is for you, Marie, Mxiety. If you could host a dinner for any fictional character, who would you invite to dinner?
Fictional.
Well, yeah, well, you know what? Anybody you like.
Does it have to be a video game? Wait, like
It can be anyone. Just anyone you like. Alive,
okay.
dead, fictional, not like actual living, whoever you want.
Okay, Sora's coming for sure.
Okay.
Obviously Rapunzel from Tangled, and then Flynn Rider, because both of them, and then probably Stitch. Okay, we're getting to a Disney theme. Let me pull out of that.
It's literally just the cast of Disney Dreamlight Valley plus some
yeah,
Kingdom
just
Hearts
like
in there
going
too.
through the. I'm looking at my bookshelf. Which is probably cheating, but you know what? You'll be fine. Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh,
He'd be so fun to talk to.
he'd be great.
I said it's cheating, but also like, come on, he'd be so fun to talk to.
Mhm.
And since again I'm cheating and looking at my bookshelf, Trevor Noah. Like a
Okay.
dinner guest, right? And then him with Stitch and like, come on.
I
That's
feel like Stitch would just
wild.
cause mayhem, but you might have to have some restraints there for Stitch.
No. I want to see what happens.
Okay.
Exactly as it is.
Cool. Anybody else? If you could host a dinner, who are you inviting?
Okay, mine's kind of a nerdy answer because it's like very Anyway, I would just love to talk to Sigmund Freud. I don't even know if it would be a good dinner, but I just want to pick that man's brain. I just want that's all I want to do. I just want to see what that man was like, just one-on-one. Just would be fascinated.
Heck yeah.
I'd come to you. Can I come to your dinner?
Absolutely.
First of all, it sounds a little less unhinged, but second of all, like
Bring Neil Patrick Harris as well, please.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And Rosie or Win, you got anybody you're inviting to dinner?
My brain is so blank. All I can think of is Krobus from Stardew Valley.
That's absolutely valid. That's a valid answer. What about you, Win? Who are you inviting to dinner?
Oh my gosh, I can't even. Yeah,
Sonic?
I feel
Is it Sonic?
I think Sonic would be a cool choice. Like, actually, it's really funny because some of the people in chat like that really know me from my community. They know that I'm a huge fangirl. You know, I have my favorite characters in Genshin. A lot of the boys that I fangirl over. So I probably invite them too.
Okay. Any particular character? Are we talking Zhongli or are we talking who are we talking?
Oh my gosh, Zhongli would be cool. I really like Xiao.
Cool. That's
I'm not
epic.
gonna
Okay.
expose myself anymore.
Absolutely fine. All right, Rosie, this one is for you. And again, people can jump in afterwards. If you were marooned on an island, what game would you want to play with your fellow guests here?
Ooh. Honestly, Breath of the Wild. Like, I know it's not multiplayer, but like I would want to, because there's so much to do, and I feel like you can get
take turns
so many
passing
hours
the controller. Yeah,
100%. Because everyone can do their own little adventure. It just doesn't have to end if you don't want it to. Yeah, easy.
And it's got that survival element in the wild. You'll need that too for your island life.
I'll learn with them. I'll be in the wild as well.
Anybody else? What are you playing together on this desert island that has internet apparently, but you can't call for help?
Yeah, that I thought that. I mean, I was like, oh, Animal Crossing. Wait, if I have Wi-Fi, why would I not be? But like, would it be too on the nose to play Animal Crossing? Like, would I be too sick of
totally
islands because I'm playing?
I don't know.
Like,
maybe
I wanna. You know what I mean?
Again, you could build your island paradise on Animal Crossing and then turn that into real life while you're out and about. If that's what came to mind first.
Oh god, that sounds
horrifying.
Now double player. So yeah, but if you're on an island, at least it's not like an island with monsters, right?
Oh, true. Well, it is. This is a very fictional island. Maybe not. You know what? It's just a regular island, but it has magic internet. That's yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? What are you playing with your fellow guests here?
I think I want to play something chaotic, like Overcooked or Plate Up. I heard is really good. I haven't tried it yet, but everyone's been raving to me about it. So just like a party game, because you can play it online. But I think that when you're together physically in the same room, like something like that, it's the full experience. Or Mario Kart.
That works too. How about you, Grzly? What are you playing?
I was at the same thought process. I was thinking like Mario Party, which like could potentially strain things, but also could really deepen those friendships, So that's what I would go with.
You got to let some steam off while you're trapped on that island. Yes. Absolutely. All right. Last question, because I am aware that we are very short on time here. Where can people find your content? And what do you got coming up in the future? If you can share on your respective channels and organizations. I will just go down the line again. Feel free to take your time on this. Grzly, we'll start with you.
Sure, sounds good. So you can find most of my stuff mostly on Twitch. So twitch.tv/GRZLY, just GRZLY. I also am doing a monthly mental health column with Bear World magazine. And lastly, I do have a podcast. It's been kind of on hiatus for a little while now, to be honest. It's called Wild Fruits. And basically it's me sort of discussing different mental health topics through like a queer lens and responding to like listener letters and things like that. I do want to bring it back. So if you look and you're like, why is there only 2 episodes of this? And it's really old. That's why. But that's mostly where you can find my stuff at.
Absolutely wonderful. Win, where can people find your content? What you got coming up?
Yeah, likewise, you can find me mostly at twitch.tv/Whinnaay. That's with 2 N's and 2 A's. I know a lot of people misspell it. All my socials also have the same handle. So if you want to find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's the same name. For me, I will be playing the new Tears of the Kingdom later this week. And leading up to that, I'll be going back to Breath of the Wild. It'll be my first time streaming Breath of the Wild. I'll be streaming the DLC. Aside from that, I also have my own podcast called Bosses and Banter, where we have another content creator or community member come on, and we usually fight the Genshin Weekly bosses while getting to know them, or we chat about a particular topic. Our last guest actually was non-Genshin related, but he came on and he shared his experience working in esports and running your own events organization in the gaming industry. So that was really, really fun. And I also run my own Genshin PvP Spiral Abyss tournament for those of you who are more into esports. So you can head to my channel and check that out.
Okie dokes. Wonderful. And of course, Marie, Mxiety, what you got coming up? Where can people find your content?
Oh, do I? Okay. Fun stuff. On the 21st, I'll be hosting a roundtable while fundraising for Games and Online Harassment Hotline. And the roundtable is going to be similar to this, talking about the positive aspects of mental health and content creation, while definitely not skirting around the fact that also some of it sucks. But yeah, so I'm really excited to do that. And then that's on the 21st. What else is going on? I stream at the moment. I'm only streaming once a week. So I like to say that that makes it more special because it's a very particular time of the week and hang out, and that's it because I just recently had a kiddo. But yeah, catch me on Sundays. Okay, what else? Oh, yes, and I do an interview series called Safe Point. Not safe space, that's safe in our worlds. And that's where I talk to other content creators about mental health and all that fun stuff as it pertains to content creation. Finally, research that I did in 2020 is going to be published at the end of the summer on how COVID affected the mental health of streamers. And I also have a chapter in the book Psychology of the Witcher. Super stoked about that. Read about attachment theory. If you're interested, attachment theory and Yennefer of Vengerberg. And okay, that'll do it.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, Rosie, all the work that you're doing with Safe in Our World, is there anything that you'd like to highlight or talk about that's might be coming up that you can talk about?
Yes. Yeah. So so you can find Safe in Our World on pretty much every platform. I actually made a Tumblr recently for Safe in Our World because apparently that was something that I thought about, and I don't know whether I'm going to continue it, but we're on there too. Everything is just at Safe in Our World. We actually have our mental health fundraiser coming up on the 20th and the 21st, I believe, of May, which is called Play Away, and it's all about being able to play the games that you connect with the most in the way that you feel most safe and comfortable, and supporting mental health awareness and talking about it in general. Other than that, as mentioned, I have a podcast with Safe in Our World called Safe Space, where we talk about lots of different topics around mental health within games and the industry. And I also am unhinged and weird on Twitter, and it's just at RT, like the letters RT, and then the word party 3. And that's it, I think.
Wonderful. Fantastic. I want to give a massive thank you to everybody for joining us today, including the viewers at home, and a big thank you to all my lovely guests, including, of course, DrGRZLY, Whinnaay, Mxiety, and Rosie here with me today, of course, from Safe in Our World. Yeah, And thank you again to DigiPride in general, presented by our partners Healthy Sexual, Wizards of the Coast, and Xbox, and sponsored by Devolver Digital and Marvelous. Thanks so much for joining us on this roundtable episode of the new gaming podcast live this season. We're going to be back in 2 weeks' time with our AAPI podcast special, which is going to be hosted by Angela, so make sure you tune in for that. And our first DigiPride Let's Go Gaming special will be kicking off the same time next week. So that's going to be whatever Sunday you tune in for more gaming goodness. It's going to be 8 p.m. UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, midday PT. So make sure you get on in there. Unfortunately, you're not going to see my face for a while because I'll be jetting off for Japan for a little bit of a break. So you can make sure you tune back in and say hello to all the wonderful guest hosts that we're going to have. Please do make things easy for them if you can. Until then, you can follow Gaming Magazine here on Twitch if you're watching, or subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the amazing content that we put out. And of course, podcasts can be listened back at any time on all major podcast platforms. And if you're listening there right now to the audio version, you're missing out so much on all of the wonderful, backgrounds and faces that we have. So head on over to Twitch and watch us live. Just head to twitch.tv/gamingmag. But until next time, we will see you very, very soon. Well, not me, but you'll see a lot of other faces pretty soon. Have a wonderful DigiPride, everyone. And bye for now. Bye.